Most people go through life with very little awareness of just how much their ego shapes their everyday behavior. We often only notice it in others, like the loud exhibitionist at a party, boldly showing off as though the room was built solely to house his ego. But our own ego is equally real and influences us in subtle ways. Its discrete input is woven into our daily conversations, our choices, even our worries. Observing your own ego is actually far more interesting and far more important than criticizing it in others. It's one of the most beneficial steps you can take toward living with more ease and happiness. To understand ego, we first need to grasp what it actually is. The ego isn't your enemy, but it's not really you either. Ego is simply your sense of self, constructed from thought. And here's the crucial bit. Ego is aware only of your physical being. It has no comprehension of anything beyond the surface identity. Because of this, it lives in constant defense mode. This is why when we meet someone new, our instinct is to parade our achievements. We tell them how valued we are at work or how our children are excelling at school or sport. Even name dropping is just the ego's way of puffing itself up, believing that telling others about a casual acquaintance with someone special makes you more important. The tricky part is that ego expresses itself through our thoughts, which come from the brain. But the brain itself isn't the most trustworthy narrator. It convinces us that the future is real, but the future is never real. The present moment is the only reality. So if ego uses the brain as its tool, can we really rely on our brain to expose the ego's tricks? Not really. That's why presence, awareness of this exact moment, is so essential. In presence, we step into a space that is deeper than thought. We're touching the part of ourselves that exists before ego and beyond its games. Now, what happens when our ego collides with someone else's? Usually, sparks fly. If we meet someone whose ego is inflated, our own ego instantly bristles and wants to defend itself, which usually results in verbal conflict. Or the ego might choose another tactic, submission. It might decide that the other ego is stronger, I'll latch onto it for safety. This is exactly how people fall under the sway of powerful leaders, political autocrats, or cult figures. Ego sees a chance to grow stronger by attaching itself to someone else's dominance. It's not loyalty, it's strategy. Ego doesn't just operate in our personal relationships. It fuels comparison and competition in almost everything. Social media, for instance, is the ego's playground. The endless scroll of curated lives designed to show the best meals, the best holidays, the best bodies, all of it is ego on parade. And our own ego reacts by either inflating or deflating itself, with both reactions keeping us trapped. So how does recognizing ego actually help in everyday life? First, it softens judgment. When you realize everyone is wrestling with their ego in some way, compassion naturally grows. Instead of reacting to someone's arrogance, you see it for what it is: fear disguised as pride. That recognition immediately changes the way you respond. Presence also shows you the absurdity of the ego's games. While the ego is desperate to make us appear more important, what it really does is stifle authenticity. It blocks the natural flow of who we really are, the part that would actually be far more magnetic and far more appreciated if only we let it shine. Eckhart Tolle also talks about the pain body, that accumulation of old hurt and resentment that the ego loves to keep alive. If you've ever noticed yourself picking a fight just to feel something familiar, that's the pain body being fed. When we're unconscious, our ego merges with this pain and uses it as fuel. Recognizing this pattern is a game changer, because once you see it, you don't fall for it as easily. The point isn't to try and kill the ego. That would just be the ego's way of making you think that you're in control. The point is to see the ego clearly, to step into presence where its grip weakens naturally. In presence, you realize you're not the story you tell at parties, not the job title, not the social mask. You are the awareness behind it all. But be careful, the ego is very sneaky. If you find yourself telling everyone that you're beyond the need to talk about your accomplishments, that's actually your ego creeping in the back door. The more you connect with that space of presence, the more you'll see the ego for what it is, a noisy but ultimately harmless voice, always trying to protect something that doesn't need protecting. And as awareness grows, the ego stops running the show. Life becomes less of a battle and more of a dance, one where connection, joy, and authenticity finally get to lead.